We now have the results of the amendment on Article 9. The amendment on Article 9 to reduce the budget by 1.5% fails. The total no votes are 96, and the total yes votes are 26. Is there any more discussion on Article 9?
Mrs. Moderator, I'd like to make an amendment to Article 9. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not to include appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations, vote separately the amount set forth on the budget, posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purpose of set forth therein, totaling $11,067,315. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $11,189,667, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous actions of the town or by law, where the Board of Selectmen may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013, Roman numeral 5 and Roman numeral 16, to take up the issue of revised operating budget only. Majority vote required. The Selectmen recommended a budget of $11,055,115 by a vote of 3-0, recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 11-1.
Is there a second to that amendment? I hear a second. Can you identify yourself, please? Evans Juris, thank you. Is there any discussion on this amendment?
Mrs. Moderator, I just wanted to explain to the voters present here today that the amendment is an addition of $12,200 to the town clerk tax collector budget for a position that was reduced from a full-time position to a part-time position in order to save funds and to save benefits. It was approved by the Budget Committee 9-3. The Board of Selectmen have chosen not to support that decision, and therefore I'm asking that the voters support the decision to add the $12,200 to the bottom line to be spent in the town clerk tax collector's office for the part-time position. This expenditure will equal approximately $2 annually to your tax bill. You get a tax bill twice a year, so that's $1 on each tax bill to support the funding of this position. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Moderator, Shannon. A question: when the amendment was read, modifying the amount, a different RSA was quoted. Could I get a clarification on that, please? Because the original was RSA 673:3, and I think you said RSA 43.
That's correct. It's the original one that's written.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Paul Blanford, Old English Lane in Guilford. Question on the way the article was read. It still had the selectmen recommended a budget of, with the adjusted number. Would that actually be how it would show on the ballot? Because the selectmen did not recommend that budget.
That's a good point, Mr. Blanford. In actuality, we can make that adjustment when the warrant is published and when the ballot is prepared. Is that correct, Mr. Mitchell? We would be,
yes. If the budget is amended, or if the article is amended here tonight, then the Budget Committee and the Selectmen have the option of voting again to see whether they recommend it. And it would be that latter vote that would be reflected on the ballot.
Thank you.
Barbara Eichinger, 558 Edgewater Drive. As much as I think we have the best town clerk tax collector in the entire state, I would be against this amendment simply because I'm siding with the selectmen on this point, is that the town clerk's tax collector's office is not busy enough to warrant that part-time position. I mean, every time that I go in there, as much as they're extremely helpful, I barely have to wait, and if I have to wait a little bit, that's okay.
Kevin Leandro, 98 Gunstock Hill Road. If I remember correctly, and the town clerk, great town clerk, she made an impassioned plea to the budget committee for this 12-2 to be added back in the budget so that she can have this part-time position. The budget committee did act accordingly and added an additional 12-2 to her budget line and made appropriate cuts elsewhere to offset it. I'd like to know what happened. Why are we now talking about adding more money back in for the same position? And I'd like to get the selectmen's take. I imagine the selectmen's taken some action over the course of Mr. Benavides or Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, may I please? Thank you.
Sure.
Good white, please. Good evening. I will be voting against this amendment, and I'll give you a few reasons why. First of all, to address what Mr. Leandro said, just to give the voters all the information, it is true that the Budget Committee did put in 12-2 back into the town clerk tax collector's budget. What the Board of Selectmen did in turn is on, I believe the correct date is January the 11th. At one of our meetings, we discussed, or we instructed our town administrator, Mr. Dunn, to go back to Denise the next day, which he did, and he followed up with an email to us that he did have a discussion with her, that what the Board of Selectmen were willing to do was to share a full-time employee from another department with her department. At that point, it is my understanding that Denise declined that offer. If that's not the case, I'll be more than happy to hear Mrs. Gagne's explanation on that. But the Board of Selectmen has given her the opportunity to share one of our full-time workers from another department into her department, so that would solve the issue. She would be able to receive approximately 20 hours, and the other department would get the other 20 hours. Folks, this is an issue for me personally where I would say as residents and as taxpayers and as Board of Selectmen, we constantly hear from the voters. And something that we constantly hear about is saying, and I can attest to this personally, is people constantly ask or kind of mandate for us to reduce taxes, reduce spending, reduce payroll. They want a smaller local government. And as a result, this Board of Selectmen, along with our town administrator, along with our department managers, have done everything we can to reduce just those things. So the questions that the voters have to ask themselves tonight is, what do we want? Do we want a smaller local government? Do we want less payroll, less benefits? Do we want less taxes? Or do we want a larger local government? Do we want to continue to hire? Do we want more payroll? Do we want more taxes? We've all heard, especially being in this municipality, we've heard the term, do more with less. Most of us who own businesses, most of us who work in the private sector, that's exactly what unfortunately has happened in our economy, that many businesses, we've had to lay people off, and we've had to do more with less. And that's exactly what we're saying in this situation. What we're asking all the departments to do is to do more with less. What we've done as a Board of Selectmen is, over the last few years, is that when there has been attrition, we haven't replaced those positions in order to pass the savings back onto the taxpayers. When we've had to make the unfortunate decisions of sometimes laying off an employee, which has been extremely difficult because we know how that affects that person, their spouse, their children, insurance. It's a difficult situation, but we've done that. We've taken full-time worker, made them a part-time worker. It's an extremely difficult situation that we've had to do, but those are the kind of things that we've had to answer to, because we're trying to do everything we can to reduce taxes. We're trying to reduce that tax rate that Mrs. Eichinger had spoken about earlier. And and I'm addressing this as an individual. I don't like the explanation of it's only $2 per household, it's only $1 every 6 months. Folks, those dollars add up. And we have to realize that this is just a one-time hiring. This is a hiring that will go on and it will affect our payroll for future time. So this is an opportunity for us not to hire And again, the offer still stands on the table. We have a full-time worker that we can share between one department and her department.
I'd like to relate a little story that's pertinent to this. A while ago, before the primary, I got an email from my stepson who was deployed in an area in the Middle East, and he was filling out his absentee ballot, and he had a question for me on it. I did not know the answer. I tried to call the town clerk's office, but they were doing a call forwarding process at the time during lunch, where they were not answering their phones because of the busy and to catch up with work. And I had to take a best guess to tell my stepson, who was deployed in the Middle East, what the answer was on his absentee ballot. If he had gotten it wrong, it probably would have invalidated his ballot. He doesn't have a lot of internet access, so this was a very short period of time that we could communicate. And unfortunately, I could not get through to the town clerk because of the fact that they were call forwarding during lunchtime so they could cover their lunches and everything else that they had to do during the day. So although they may not appear busy all the time, when anybody goes in there, I have a feeling they're down with their noses to the grindstone all the time. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, if I could address the selectmen on this. Gus, you had stated earlier that your offer to Ms. Gagne was that you would combine a position, 20 hours and 20 hours. If she has rejected that offer, is that position now a 20-hour position, or is that maintained as a 40-hour position, even though 20 hours could have been used in the clerk's office?
Right, that's correct. That position is currently a 40-hour person in the Department of Planning, and what we were willing to do is share that person 20 hours in the Department of Planning, 20 in Town Clerk Tax Collector's Office.
So if 20 hours of that employee's job could have been used in the clerk's office, is it now needed for 40 hours in the planning office? I guess my question is if we add a part-time employee, are we then going to make 2 part-time employees, 1 full-time employee, and the cost is actually more than $12,000? Or are we having a full-time employee that could have been used in the town clerk's office for 20 hours, plus another part-time employee that Ms. Garner's requesting right now? Do you understand what I'm asking you?
I lost you
okay,
a while ago, but
I'll try to come back and clarify it for you then. If we have an employee that is available for 40 hours in whatever department it's in, and 20 of that could have been used in the town clerk's office, why is it still a 40-hour employee? Doing what work that would have not been done while that employee was in the town clerk's office, I guess is what I'm asking.
If your question is what the associate is doing, I'm sorry, the employee is doing now? If the person is...
I think what Mr. Concord is asking you is that if the position is, you only need 20 hours in the planning department, then why is the position now 40 hours still, even though Mrs. Conyers
That is exactly my question. Thank you very much.
Steve, I can answer that question. Kind of like this. The selectmen have the purview over personnel issues in the town hall. And obviously we understand we think we understand the position in the town tax collector's office. We were trying to develop some flexibility among more than one person in the town hall, and so we had an arrangement that we were actually going to loop a couple of people to make everything balance out, but our offer to the TCTC office was refused, so at this point we've made other arrangements to be as effective as we can with our personnel.
So is that employee now doing services for other departments in the town instead of the town clerk?
We're assigning other work to her to take up her duties, yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Moderator? Yes. I'd like to address that. The reason why I refused accepting the help, the person gets paid currently about $18 an hour, and when you work in my office, the starting pay is $12 an hour. I have veteran employees 6 and 7 years that are not making the amount of money that I would have to pay this person to come into my department, and I felt it wasn't a fair use of tax dollars.
Any other comments or questions on amendment?
Madam Moderator, my name is Skip Murphy from Guilford Glen Road, and I know that during the budget season we wrestled with this as well, and I just felt that it was worthwhile to speak up for just a moment, because we in the Budget Committee felt that it was time to pull resources out of the planning department because of such low level of activity given the current economy, especially in the real estate area. So we had actually put money into, or tried to keep the money in the town collector department, and having pulled that resource out of the planning department, it seems that the selectmen have decided to go against that, which is perfectly legal because we could only change single line items during the budget process, resulting in the total budget. The problem is with this amendment is that there is no way to demand that the selectmen fund this department the way that it would, that Denise would like, or the way that the Budget Committee would like. And I think that the selectmen are wrong in this. And I wish that they would change their minds and reverse their decision.
Mr. Juris.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Evans Juris, Long Ridge Drive. I speak in favor of the article. The Budget Committee reluctantly will put money back in. In this case, they chose to. The Board of Selectmen, in their ultimate wisdom, have chosen not to put the money into that area. Now, I recall reading a letter in the newspaper that was written by the town clerk, which said that one of the selectmen had made the comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, they wanted to put the pressure on the taxpayer, or something similar to that. If in fact that is true, which one of you said that? If you want to put the pressure onto us.
What? I don't get the question.
If it's not true, I guess we'll just have to make a determination on that ourselves. The fact of the matter is, the services that are provided by the tax collector's office are much different than in other communities. They do a lot more things. And we've been very fortunate that Denise and her predecessor, Debbie, were willing to do what they do. There's always been pressure put on the town clerk's office by the selectman's office. The previous speaker brought up a good point about the employee. Now it seems like you're looking to find that employee 20 more hours. Why don't you just make the determination, if you're the governing body which you claim to be, and do that and give her back that position, which is what the Budget Committee did and what she justified to them. You've already eliminated a bunch of other positions, or associates as some of you refer to them as, in other departments.
Madam Moderator, thank you. Sam Aldridge, Belknap Mountain Road. I just have a question, because sometimes I make my decisions with emotion rather than my wallet. And is this a position that was cleared through attrition and you're looking to hire to replace, or by losing this position will somebody lose a job?
This is a position that I had as a full-time position, and I came forward and asked it to be 24 hours, and the board has cut 40 hours. The person was not leaving and is now trying to seek employment.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to make sure everybody, make sure this is on first. I want to make sure everybody realizes that all these things happen during the budgetary process. And what we finally did, and as I mentioned before, if anybody wanted any more information on why we got to a different budget, we eliminated a while ago, at the beginning of the budgetary process, a person from the DPLU, Department of Planning and Land Use. Correction, we eliminated half of a person. To make up for that, a person that was at half-time went to full-time to fill in some of the duties there. And the point that I want to make is, many of the departments, actually most of the departments, have had cutbacks, and I think all the department managers will attest to that. And it's interesting that we want to add somebody else to the tax collector's office, town clerk tax collector's office.
in the fact that, and I agree with Barbara Akinger, that if you go to that office, rather than going through the thing, if you go to that office, there's never a line of more than 3 or 4 people, and to increase that service is not the same thing we're doing to other departments. We're decreasing service to make sure that we can come up with a budget that's acceptable by everybody. I want to add that I really appreciate the employees of the TCTC office. They do a great job, and I expect them to continue with that, and I know that they will, and I think we can get along without another half person there.
Any other question or comment on the amendment on Article 9? Are you ready to vote?
Yes.
All right. The amendment to Article 9 provides for the town to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately. The amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $11,067,315. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $11,189,667, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous actions of the town or by law. Or the Board of Selectmen may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 675:3, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
I'm not clear on the vote, so I'm going to ask for assistance from Mrs. Bueling again, please, Mrs. Buckman again, please, Mrs. Corrigan, and Mrs. Eichenberg. All those in favor of the amendment signify by raising your hand.
Sorry.
No, I
That's counted twice.
No.
Oh, did you count her vote? Yes. Oh, I counted. Okay.
Right, so you have 18 for that.
Yes.
All those opposed to the amendment to Article 9, please raise your hand.
Yeah, I do count them twice, but just check this one.
The amendment to Article 9 passes with 51 yes votes and 46 no votes. Our town council, Mr. Mitchell, has advised us that the correct RSA is the 40:13 that was prepared in the amendment by Denise. So we would like to inform you that the posted warrant has the correct statute. So I think that's merely a technicality, but I felt it was important for all of you to know that the correct statute is RSA 675:13.
It's 4013.
Well, I'm sorry, the correct one is 4013. Is there any more discussion of Article 9?
Just a question with this. As somebody else asked, $12,000 some change being put back in. And what Mr. Leandro had mentioned with the Budget Committee, we tried to put that money back in. Putting this $12,000 back in does not obligate the selectmen to put that position in. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are we ready to move on? Article 10. Shall the town vote to approve the cost items included in the 2-year collective bargaining agreement reached between the Board of... Yes.
We did not vote about putting it on to the actual ballot.
We have,
We did vote on the
we
amendment.
have passed the amendment.
Yeah, we have to vote on the amendment.
So Mr. Eddy, you are suggesting that we would move to place Article 9, place the Article 9 as worded in the amendment on the official ballot.
That is correct.
All those in favor of placing the amendment to Article 9 on the official ballot signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you for that clarification. Article 10.
Croc TV.